This is Family Food Savings, and today we're asking, can Kamala Harris, or Donald Trump, or any other politician for that matter, put the brakes on food price inflation to help you with your household budget? Don't go away. I don't know about you, but the cost of food is something that's never far from the front of my mind. I've got 3 children, and as prices go up, I wonder, when's it going to end, and can anyone do anything about it? Now, you might have heard Kamala Harris being asked about grocery prices in her CNN interview last week, and as a result of that, you might incorrectly assume that she has some sort of magical power or influence over food prices. I'll come back to the specific question she was asked, as well as her answer, in just a moment. But first, folks, let's be honest with ourselves. If the question was, Kamala Harris, can you stop food price inflation? Then the answer is no. If the question was, Kamala Harris, can you control food price inflation? Then the answer is, for the most part, no. In fact, if you were to ask any government official or politician, can you manage the price I pay for food at the grocery store? Then the honest answer should always be no. In this case, the question was something soft about what she'd say to people who want to go back to the good old days when, presumably, food prices were low under Trump. Albeit that for all 4 years of Trump's presidency, food inflation was higher than in the last 2 years of Obama's administration. But anyway, she waffled some stuff about COVID, and then she mentioned price gouging, which no modern-day democratic government will ever deal with in any meaningful way, because they're not going to start dictating to private companies what they should be charging for their stuff in a free market. And she mentioned child tax credits, which may well be very helpful for struggling families, but they don't do anything at all to address food prices directly. It was a reasonably coherent answer, but it doesn't address why governments in reality have so little control over what you and I pay for our food. There are a bunch of reasons for that, which the politicians aren't going to tell you about, but I am in just a moment. Plus, don't go away, because I'm going to give you 3 things you can do on your very next shopping trip to fight back against inflation and stay in control of your food spend. First, let's talk about global supply chains. You see, food prices, obviously, are heavily influenced by what happens around the world. So, for example, if there's a drought in a major wheat-producing country, wheat prices typically go up. And this is something that a government can't easily control, especially when the issue happens a long way away outside of their borders. COVID in itself is a great example. Supply chains were hit hard all over the place, and as a result of that, food prices went up everywhere. Now, that had nothing to do with anything that Trump did or didn't do, or any policy that he enacted. Secondly, the food market is driven largely by supply and demand. In a free market economy, prices are determined by how much you and I are willing to pay for stuff, as well as how much product is available. So when we demand more avocados and there aren't many around, prices go up. Governments, again, generally don't go around just setting prices for foodstuffs. They can, but that often leads to unintended consequences like shortages or black markets, or even, in the long run, higher prices. We've seen this in countries around the world over the years. In fact, even Nixon tried it in the US in the 1970s. So, when Kamala suggests she's going to deal with price gouging, then, much like when I hear politicians in this country say it, I have to call bullshit on that idea. The third reason governments really can't do much about food prices is because of currency fluctuations. Currency plays a big role in food prices, especially for imported goods. And if the value of a country's currency drops, then the cost of importing food rises. And there's a lot of complex global economic stuff that goes into that, which I don't claim to understand, but it's largely out of your government's control. As an example, when I left the UK about 7 or 8 years ago, Brexit was just about to happen. And as a result, the British pound fell in value and the cost of importing food into the UK increased. The government obviously took various steps to try and keep the currency stable and keep things under control, but they simply couldn't control all the factors that influenced that situation. So neither Trump nor Harris can or will come to your rescue and start writing out lower price tickets at Walmart. But that doesn't mean you're powerless to control your food spend, because even though you can't control food prices either, there are things you can do to protect yourself from the impact of food inflation. I'm touching on just 3 of them in this video, and these are all things that my wife and I have adopted, and dare I say even adapted to, in the last couple of years. And the result is that our grocery bill has stayed the same as a proportion of our total monthly outgoings, in spite of food prices themselves going up. So, how have we done it? Well, first up, stop buying stuff on impulse when you go to the store. If you're throwing extra things in your cart or your basket, like we were, you're bound to be counting the cost by the time you get out to the checkout. It's probably junk anyway, and it's probably going to blow your budget. So instead of doing that, write yourself a list. Shop without your kids. Very important. Leave them at home and focus on getting the job done without the temptations. Next thing you want to try and do is buy store brands whenever you can. Switch out of the more expensive national brands when it comes in particular to things like canned goods, baking ingredients like flour, cereals, condiments, cleaning products. There's a really good chance that you won't even notice the difference except when it comes to your bank balance, because you could be paying as little as half as much for the retailer branded version. Now you're going to find this stuff on the lower shelves. That's where they keep them. So they're out of your field of vision and you'll pick up the more expensive stuff that's right in front of your face instead. Try making a couple of switches. If you like them, let us know in the comments. Number 3 for today is start using cheaper cuts of meat. I don't know about where you live, but meat is eye-wateringly expensive in a lot of countries around the world. Certainly is where I live. And it's one of the hardest hit categories when it comes to inflation. The more processed it is, the more expensive it tends to be. The leaner it is, the more expensive it typically tends to be. So, crucial thing here is don't be afraid, don't be nervous about buying cheaper cuts. You're probably going to need to cook them down for longer, but you can make absolutely delicious meals from things like chuck steak, beef shank, lamb neck. Okay, so think curries, think casseroles, think ragouts. Get yourself some recipes, cook them up in the biggest pot you've got, and you are going to save yourself loads of money. You could be saving anything upwards of $20, $30 or even $40 a kilo versus more expensive steaks. Just got to overcome that fear, that anxiety that's telling you it'll be tough or tasteless, or that you just don't know what to do with it in the first place. Okay, now these are just 3 ideas to help you combat food inflation. There are plenty more, and if you've got others, please share them in the comments to help others who are trying to stick to a food budget too and put healthy meals on the table for their family. One thing's for sure, folks, politicians aren't the answer to controlling your food budget. They can't fix food inflation and they won't stop the prices from going up. But if you do want to know how to fight the price increases at the grocery store, how to stick to your household budget, how to shop for food better, I suggest you hit subscribe right now, because that's exactly what this channel aims to share with you every single week. Good luck with your groceries, and I'll see you in the next one.